Hello, all you heart changers out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor. This is Undeclared Bajor, the best Star Trek DS9 discussion podcast on the internet.
Woo!
My name is Fletcher, about to say hello is Data.
Woo! Hi.
No, you have to say hello. You can only say the things I tell you to say.
I refuse.
Today we're going to discuss Star Trek DS9, Season 6, Episode 16, Change of Heart. Alternate title, Losing Lasaran.
Huh. Okay. Alright.
Meh.
Yeah.
We will be discussing spoilers up through this episode, but not after this episode. And we got some juicy spoilers we could discuss, but we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Unless we slip up and accidentally do it. So
Which, that happens, but
yeah.
Not a lot.
If we accidentally say the spoiler and then I forget to bleep it out when I'm editing. So it should be safe for you to watch along with us if this is your first experience with Star Trek DS9. But we do spoil anything else we want to. Books, TV shows.
Even other Star Trek things.
Yeah.
We just spoil the hell out of them, so.
Right.
You know.
Only Deep Space Nine is safe. And it's like 95% safe. So.
You remember that time Jason Alexander appeared on Voyager? That's crazy.
I remember that happened. I don't remember anything about that episode.
I remember the episode was called Think Tank. But I assume there was a think tank.
Oh, was he a super brain alien or something like that? He was like a super smart alien?
I feel like, yes, like they wanted 7 of 9 for their think tank or something, I think. It's been a really long time since I watched Voyager, so...
Right. Don't get people's hopes up for Undeclared Voyager. But Change of Heart originally aired March 4th, 1998. It was written by Ronald D. Moore and directed by David Livingston.
It feels like a Ronald D. Moore episode. Like, I get that. Also, amusingly enough, the last episode directed by David Livingston was You Are Cordially Invited. So now he's just in the Worf Dax, like, that's his ballpark now.
I guess it involves kind of like a moral dilemma, so I guess that's a little bit Ronald D. Moore-y, you know. I think he likes to do those kind of gray area episodes or whatever, but...
He likes to get, like, weird and dark a little bit.
Yeah.
And he... If you will recall, a previous episode that he directed was one of our favorite A and B story combinations, Life Support.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, it is kind of like got some connective tissue with that, doesn't it?
Yeah, so apparently, the wiki points out that unusually for Deep Space Nine, the B story just ends halfway through the episode and the A story takes over completely. And Ronald D. Moore says that was very intentional because the last time he mixed a dark, serious A story with a lightweight, inconsequential B story was Life Support, and he feels like it didn't work that well,
right.
And he wasn't going to make the same mistake again, so this time, keep it short.
That was the famous juxtaposing of the horrific slow death of Bareil with the Jake and Nog shenanigans.
Yep, the Jake and Nog double date shenanigans.
Speaking of which, Sirach Lofton is not in this episode, and if ever an episode needed him, I think it might be this one.
I mean, maybe. But yeah, there's another cast member who does not appear in this episode.
Okay, checking memory. Oh, is it Kira, Nana Visitor? No, she's in the episode.
She's in there.
Man, why can't I think of it? I mean, Worf is there, Dax is there, Kira's there, Sisko's there, Quark is there, Bashir is there. Odo, of course.
Odo, yep. There you go.
I can't believe it took me that long to think of that. Who knows where Odo is, but
he's not involved in this crap. That's where Odo is.
But things are getting intense at the weekly after-hours Tongo game at Quark's, or nightly, or whatever. Worf and O'Brien watch from above. Miles points out that Quark is on a roll, 206 straight games won. But Worf is confident that Dax will pull through. despite the fact that Worf knows nothing about Tongo.
Yeah, also, I mean, was she not involved in any of the other 206 games that he played straight?
Maybe not. Maybe this is her first challenge of the reigning champion. We don't know.
No.
The chief offers a bet. A bottle of blood wine versus a bottle of Scotch whiskey. And thus we learn the reason that O'Brien can never return to Ireland. For a moment it looks like Dax has Quark, but then Quark pulls out the dreaded full consortium.
Which sounds like it should be the best hand in the game, but is apparently not.
Right. Worf's not mad, though, as he tells Dax he'd rather lose a bet on her than win on someone else. Good line.
It is a good line. Although, you skipped one of my favorite lines of the episode. I like my blood wine. Very young and very sweet.
Yeah, that could get a little iffy. That night, Dax and Worf get ready for bed. Dax says that the Sutherland is coming to Deep Space Nine. So isn't that the ship that Fire Dancer guy is on?
It is the ship that Fire Dancer guy was on, and that Data commanded that one time. So.
Oh, right. So now's our chance for a threesome with Fire Dancer guy.
That's why she brought it up, obviously.
Right. But before she can finish saying that, she sees that Worf is praying to a little statue that I don't think we've ever seen before.
Yeah, I mean, we know the Klingons killed their gods, so I don't know what's up with this.
It could be an ancestor thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So she just takes off her nightgown and throws it on his head. Pretty clear signal. Later, they get a call from Kira to come to the commander's office. She reveals that Starfleet intelligence has been working a Cardassian spy named Lasaren. And he's requested that someone go out to the Badlands to call him. And since everybody else is apparently busy, that mission goes to Dax and Worf.
And you can't, send a probe out to, call forward that stuff or anything. It's like a... You have to be there.
No, yeah, you don't understand how this technology works.
No.
So they load up the Shenandoah and head for the Badlands.
Shenandoah, the newest runabout. We get introduced to it here.
Right, I was like, uh-oh, is this going to be a red shirt runabout? But along the way, they make honeymoon plans. Worf pitches various outdoors type trips, but Dax insists that she wants a relaxing resort vacation with room service and lots of pampering. Worf fears Ryza, where he is most likely wanted on charges of terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they're not going to Ryza. They're going to Casperia Prime, because he can't go back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Dax has it all figured out. Casperia Prime, baby. Vacation capital of the Hoverian cluster.
Yeah, the best cluster.
I'm going to need to know what the vacation baseline is for the Hoverian cluster before I get too excited.
I mean, yeah, probably.
It's like the vacation capital of West Texas. It's like, question.
It gets mentioned in an episode of Picard, season 3.
Oh, wow, really? Casperia Prime?
Yeah, that's where Picard and Beverly Crusher enjoy a shore leave together. That
oh, is that where they hooked up?
It says that...
Spoiler for that show.
Picard was called back early from their vacation, and that confirmed Crusher's belief that their relationship was ending. And on that night, Jack Crusher was conceived. Super spoiler alert, I guess. But
right,
we warned you about we'd spoil other Star Trek, so I don't know what you want.
Yeah, just to be clear, not Jack Crusher, her husband, but Jack Crusher, her son by Picard. 2 different Jack Crushers. I want to make sure that you were correctly spoiled about that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Also, apparently, Lieutenant Hawk, famous Lieutenant Hawk of Star Trek First Contact fame, and death, in the video game Star Trek Starship Creator, his biography mentions that he was severely wounded by a disruptor blast sustained while shielding Federation Ambassador Louis Caggiano during an assassination attempt on Casperia Prime.
Ooh.
So, yeah, there's some real deep Casperia Prime lore.
Man, what's going on Casperia Prime? But yeah, Worf is like, cool, let's do it. And Dax is impressed that he didn't put up a fight. She's a little concerned that Worf is so pleasant and accommodating lately, but Worf is like, hey, I'm making an effort. And then he accuses Dax of being set in her ways. Dax says this is going to be a very, very long trip. So here comes Let He Who Is Without Sin Part 2. Oh no.
You mean you don't want to watch what would happen on He Who Was Without Sin Part 2, where Worf takes over something else about, like, they go to Casperia Prime
Right.
and Worf is forced to make another statement.
I blew up the Casperia Prime Parliament building.
For you.
To prove a point about our relationship.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the B story, if this can even be called a story...
It really does feel like just, like, what the hell was that about?
Right? Chief O'Brien is studying up on his Tongo. Bashir comes over in his Agent Julian Bashir tuxedo, wondering why Miles isn't ready for their holosuite appointment. They only have 3 hours to rescue these missing British agents that have disappeared in East Germany or something. But Miles has caught Tongo fever. He wants to beat Quark and invites Julian to play a game. Julian doesn't know the rules, but apparently he does after looking at a pad for 1 second. So he's just full-on Data now.
Right. It's like we're taking his genetic engineering so far with this scene where it's like, look at pad, okay, instantly know all rules, including, like, because this is not a simple game. This is not like Go Fish. This is,
right.
You're indexing the margin at 20%. Like, you did not just learn that.
Yeah, and later Quark says that computers still can't beat, not human players, but I guess Ferengi players at least.
Yeah.
So this is not a solved game. The Shenandoah arrives at the Badlands and gets the call from the Cardassian agent. Lasarn is quite annoyed to see that Worf is a Klingon, but he has important information. He knows all about changeling activity in the Alpha Quadrant. From what he says, everything. Like, how many there are, where they are, what they're doing.
Yeah. What they had for breakfast. He knows it all.
Right. However, things are getting a little hot for him, and he needs an extraction. So here's the plan he pitches. He's about to leave for the planet Sakara in Dominion territory. In exactly 3 days, he's going to walk out into the jungle, and after that, they'll have 2 days before anyone knows he's missing. So... he's pulling like a Dennis Nedry or something.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know what he's doing. Unfortunately, there are transporter scramblers, so they'll have to land on the planet and pick him up. So, I thought this would be a good time for a true history story.
Okay.
So, in 1952, the CIA got a signal from one of their operatives inside China requesting an extraction. So they sent a C-47 airplane deep into Chinese territory to extract the agent using the skyhook maneuver, as seen in the movie The Dark Knight.
Yeah, there you go.
What they didn't know was that their agent had been captured and forced to send the signal. So when the plane got to the rendezvous point, it was met with 2 anti-aircraft guns and shot down. The pilots died in the crash, and the 2 CIA officers on board, whose names were Jack Downey and Richard Fecteau, each with a head full of secrets, were captured, interrogated, and spent the next 20 years of their lives in Chinese prison. So, I bring up this historical example. Some people might consider it a cautionary tale, considering what's going on here. But anyway, Worf and Dax agree to fly into Dominion space, land on the planet, and pick Lasarn up. Lasarn is all sassy about having to rely on the word of a Klingon, however.
Well, then we won't pick you up.
Which maybe he shouldn't have had so much attitude, but
yeah, maybe that was a contributing factor. Let's be honest here.
Back on the station, O'Brien and Bashir continue their Tongo practice.
Yeah, I feel like Bashir's really getting cheated here. You know, he must have had to pay Quark for that holosuite time. So
yeah,
and O'Brien, you could learn Tongo anytime. You agreed to spend some time on the holosuite playing this thing with your friend. Stop being a jerk, O'Brien.
That's true. That's a good point. He's not getting that money back for sure.
No.
But Julian is picking up the game much faster than Miles, and asks why Miles suddenly wants to beat Quark at Tongo, and Miles goes on a big speech about how he's in it for a challenge. Then he immediately throws all that challenge stuff out the window and says, hey, wait, why don't you just beat Quark at Tongo?
Yeah, his famous penchant for doing anything for a challenge that we've seen so many times, and then is, as you said, 5 seconds later thrown out the window, and it's like, well, I'm not going to overcome this challenge. Why don't you do the challenge?
This well-established character trait of Chief O'Brien. But yeah, he entices the Doctor with the idea of the look on Quark's face when he is beat at his own game by a lowly human. So I think the true motives have become clear.
Yeah, we stick it to Quark.
Yep.
The greatest motive of all. So this might be a good time to say that this was not the original B story.
Oh, really?
For the episode. The original B story involved Rom, Nog, and Nog's mother, Prinadora.
Ooh.
Prinadora arrives on the station claiming she's come to reconcile with Rom and get to know Nog. But it turns out she's actually there to hoodwink Rom all over again.
Oh my goodness. Ah, that woman.
Max Grodenchik, Aaron Eisenberg, Chase Masterson, and Lolita Fato have performed the unfilmed B-plot at conventions.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's kind of neat. I want to see if there's some film of that out there. I'd be interested.
I bet it's out there somewhere, and if it is, and I remember, I'll put a link to it. Otherwise, I won't. So, the Shenandoah arrives at the Sakara system, but first they have to fly through an asteroid field, which Dax manages with panache, impressing Worf.
Yes, so there's a note in here about the asteroid field even.
Okay.
David Stipes comments, I thought the asteroids were really nice. We were initially thinking about using the asteroids from the episode Emanations, which was a Voyager episode that we'd done some years ago. You can wind up copying yourself if you're not careful, and then all of a sudden you wind up doing your own shots over and over, and you're not pushing your own envelope, in quotes, so to speak. I've been working with the idea of finding new ways to be creative. It would be very easy to fall until this trap of, I assume that's supposed to be into this trap
right.
of, we've done that before. What did we do before? Let's do the same thing. It's much more fun and challenging to say, how can we make an asteroid field look different? The guys at Digital Muse were just great. They kept pushing it and tweaking, looking at the textures, painting, and showing things. I would share ideas, and Adam would share ideas. It was a wonderful collaborative effort. So, nice. Go asteroid field, I guess.
Yeah. I felt it was very reminiscent of the Empire Strikes Back asteroid field scene.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. It was something interesting that happened in the episode, so. And also, if they're always pushing the envelope, why are we always looking at the exact same establishing shots? But
and the same cave.
Right, exactly. I assume the cave is someone else's department, but...
Probably. It's not the same jungle, though. We'll get to that in a minute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so they arrive at the planet, do a few scans, and set the runabout down. They're 20 kilometers from the rendezvous, so they need to make 10 kilometers a day. Sounds easy. Worf is clearly pleased to be getting his hiking honeymoon after all.
Yep, Worf.
But first they find a little doodad on the jungle floor and shoot it with a little laser, somehow masking them from detection.
Yeah, perfect Star Trek. Yep.
So if you're worried about that, don't worry about it anymore. They shot a thing with a thing, and now they can't be detected. Also, their tricorders won't work while they're down there.
You know, the good and bad, right?
I don't know what's going on at this Dominion base where, like, you can't beam in and out. Tricorders don't work. I don't know. Could be something worth looking into.
Talking about how far they had to travel through this jungle, it reminded me strongly of there's a book in the Dresden Files series called Changes, where they have to go through like jungle to get to like a place in Mexico. And so it was like, we got to go 5 miles from here to this pyramid over here. And somebody's like, oh man. And he's like, what, you can't do 5 miles? And he's like, 5 miles of sidewalk, sure, but jungle's a little different. And another guy's like, yeah, and it's at night too. And a third guy's like, so, I mean, I've done some jungle, like, how bad is the bush? And the guy's like, tougher than the lower Amazon, but not as bad as Cambodia. And then there's a moment where all the guys just sit around, like, nodding their heads, pretending that they understand, like, the difference there, and going like, oh, okay. So that's what that made me think of.
Nice. Okay, so the Ferengi don't want to let Bashir into the Tongo game, but he basically just says, come on, let me in, and they say, okay.
Yeah, he's like, please,
right.
I have money. And they're like, all right.
So yeah, they buy in with 5 of 6 of O'Brien's Latinum strips, which I'm a little curious where he got those Latinum strips from, but because it looks like he got them out of some sort of official storage locker or something. Like,
Yeah, like they're in a case with like slots exactly enough
Right.
for like. I was like, did we replicate this case specifically for 6 Latinum strips? That's okay.
It's like, is there like a petty cash fund or something where you can like check out a suitcase with like 6 strips of latinum or something?
It's a good. I mean, once again, they must have been paying for all their Holosuite time. So
Right.
I feel like O'Brien and Bashir must have some sort of like side hustle where they're making enough Latinum to pay for the Holosuite.
Yeah. I kind of think that Starfleet officers must get some kind of stipend or something
Maybe.
when they're working like in areas where you need money.
Yeah, you probably should have something like that. Yeah.
Right. And I assume like the Federation deals with some kind of currency for, dealing with other people, like other governments. But
One would think.
so soon the game is just down to Quark and Julian. Then Quark starts talking about Dax and how wonderful she is and how now she's married and lost to them forever. A special woman unlike any other, and they blew it. Bashir is obviously distracted, and O'Brien keeps trying to butt in and refocus him. But Quark just tells him to shush. He's like,
Yeah, no coaching during the game.
He's like, dude,
Even
pay
though
attention. Dude, stop, pay attention.
Yeah, I'm clearly screwing with his brain, but
Right.
I'm allowed, so you shut up.
Then it's time to lay down, and Bashir reveals a full consortium. But Quark has a total monopoly.
Which, I mean, when you say it that does sound better than the consortium.
True. Quark takes the whole pot, and Bashir and O'Brien are left with nothing. Bashir asks Quark if he meant all that stuff he said about Dax, and Quark is like, seriously? And just walks out with the money. It's like, are you really this dumb? I thought you were genetically engineered. I mean, you learned the rules, like, apparently immediately after looking at them, so...
I really thought we were past this with Bashir, and now all of a sudden he's gonna, like, go all doe-eyed again over Dax.
Uh-huh.
It's like, dude, you dated Lita for a while. Like, just move on, man.
Can't have Lita either now.
Yeah, she dumped him for Rom, which that can't be good for his self-esteem, but still.
Right. But thus, this story is over. Or whatever it was.
Yeah, it could have been like one scene, honestly, but...
So let's just recap real fast. The beats of the story were, hey, look at that game Tongo. We should try playing that. Oh, we tried. It didn't go very good. The end.
Yeah.
Then we get a hiking through the jungle montage with Dax and Worf.
So, it says, the Jungles of Sukara was created by the Greens Department on Stage 5 on the Paramount lot. Because there were so many walking shots, the jungle was built as a large circle, so the actors and crew didn't have to keep stopping and switching sides, like which direction they were going in filming. However, during shooting, the general consensus was the Greens people did too good a job of constructing the oppressive jungle. According to art director Randy McElvain, we had designed small platforms to put all these trees on so the filmmakers could move the platforms out and get into the jungle area to shoot. But they added more and more plants until we couldn't move the platforms. The plants and vines were all intertwined. It got so difficult we may as well have been on location.
Nice.
So, well done, Greens team,
Yeah.
I guess. That's a pretty good looking jungle.
I'm willing to say go all out, when you're doing your thing. So, so they did not fly down to the Amazon and
Nope.
film there. Okay. Yeah, but Worf leads the way while Dax keeps getting thwacked in the face with plants and walking through poison ivy and stuff.
Haha.
At night, Dax gives Worf the blanket, which they apparently only have one of, because Trills like the cold and Klingons don't.
Yeah, I don't... Why do we not have more blanket?
Mm.
It seems like poor planning.
Maybe there's a scene we missed where she's like, aren't you going to pack your blanket? He's like, Klingon warriors do not need blankies.
Okay, I believe that scene happened now. Yeah. Okay.
They listen to the nighttime animals exchange mating calls. Worf tells the story of when he was a kid and he would go hiking in the Ural Mountains and listen to the wolves at night, and it made him want to rip off all his clothes and become something wild.
Yeah, apparently this story that he tells is the only reference to his adopted brother since the episode where his brother appeared.
Huh.
Homeward was the Next Generation episode.
That can't be right. I'm sure he's mentioned him at other times.
He's talked about his brother Kern several times, but I don't know.
I mean, Memory Alpha is never wrong, so...
yeah, I mean, you know...
he did say... I think he said the Ferengi bartender in this episode, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, I notice that every time now.
Right. I don't even know how to explain that whole thing. If you haven't listened to every single Undeclared Bajor episode, don't worry about it.
No, it's fine.
Go back and listen to the whole thing for the context. So then Worf hears a twig snap. They dive behind cover and watch as 3 Jem'Hadar walk around the jungle scanning stuff. They jump the Jem'Hadar and take them out, one with a cool MacLeod throw.
Yep.
But Dax takes a hit from one of the Jem'Hadar anticoagulant guns. It seems she's on her way to meet the same fate as Muniz.
They really should have come up with something for that by now.
Right. Yeah, come on. We know what these guns do by now. Let's have an anticoagulant.
Or as it's sometimes known, a coagulant.
Mm-hmm. Well, but she says they should keep pressing forward and complete the mission. The next morning, they are still 12 kilometers away from the rendezvous, and Dax is still bleeding. Worf blames himself for being so relaxed, but Dax tries to keep up a can-do attitude and insists that they keep going. So they hike montage some more, but Dax continues to deteriorate. With 3 kilometers left, she has to take a break. She keeps up her cheerful, funny routine. Worf promises that if she finishes the mission, he'll smile all she wants.
I really wonder if they'd turned around right after she got hit and gone back to the runabout and he put her in the stasis tube, could he then have completed the mission? Instead of spending most of a day hiking through, slowed down by her, almost certainly, only to then turn around and head back.
This is a very good point, because they weren't even halfway there.
Exactly, yeah.
When she got
and I bet you anything, Worf could move through the jungle real quick on his own.
Right. This is a very good point. Nitpick of the week. I was just thinking, it's like, we need a nitpick this week. So she tries to get up and continue, but she can't stand. They both agree that duty dictates Worf go on himself and get Lasaren. His intelligence, if it's real, is too valuable. They talk about meeting back up later and returning to the runabout, but it's clear neither one of them expects Jadzia to still be alive when Worf returns. So alone, he presses further into the jungle, but he starts to hear a heart beating. He's having telltale heart flashbacks.
Yeah. Really, I think the scene that they do is pretty good here, where the way they play it, where he's coming up with excuses for I have to go, and she's just well, yeah, duh, yeah. Obviously, yeah. Go. Why are you arguing? I'm agreeing with you.
Right. Yeah. It was pretty good, especially since it was kind of it was all subtext.
Yeah.
Where
because that they're thinking something completely different than what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah, it's all subtext.
They're both basically saying their goodbyes. So
yeah.
So, yeah, he starts to hear the telltale heart. He stops, throws his MacLeod into a tree, and goes back to Jadzia, picking her up and carrying her, if my math is right, 17 kilometers back to the runabout.
So did you just leave his MacLeod there?
It
lives there now?
I was wondering, how many MacLeods does he have? Does he have one that's really special, or...
It's a fair question. He could replicate more if he...
Right.
But if he has a special one, obviously, that's a different thing.
Yeah. How sentimental is he about that particular MacLeod? I don't know.
So, apparently, the original idea for the story of 2 officers journeying into the jungle behind enemy lines, which... I'm I guess you could call that the basic story of the episode. I feel like you're kind of focusing on the wrong part. But according to this... The basic story is inspired by the 1968 John Wayne and Ray Kellogg movie The Green Berets, which also starred George Takei.
Ooh.
And so I had to go and look and see what The Green Berets were about. And like George, it's like two guys behind enemy lines in the Vietnam War. So it's like, oh, was George Takei like on the other side in? I like this note. The film was notable in its casting of George Takei, who was then a regular on the series Star Trek. As a result of Takei joining the film's cast, he missed filming nearly a third of the episodes of Star Trek's second season. His lines were subsequently rewritten for the character Pavel Chekhov, played by Walter Koenig, who was originally cast as a rarely speaking background character and grew into one of the major characters because of this absence. So there you go. This episode is somehow based on the movie that created Chekhov as the major character.
Right. Or was that attributed, or was that a Memory Alpha?
That is not a Memory Alpha. This is from a Screen Rant article called "The Reason Trek Added Chekhov in TOS Season 2."
But the similarity between this episode and
the
Green
Berets. Sorry, that was a Memory Alpha thing. Let me see if that's attributed. It comes from the Star Trek Deep Space Nine companion.
Okay, so at least it's from that.
Yeah.
So back on Deep Space Nine, Dax is alive and recovering in the infirmary. Sisko comes in and tells Worf that Lasaren is dead. He asks Worf what happened, and Worf says he thought back to the story of the two Klingon hearts beating as one story from his wedding, and he knew that his first duty had to be to his wife. You might say he had a reevaluation of priorities. Sisko says that Worf probably won't be getting a command of his own now, which Worf's like, whatever, my career wasn't moving that fast anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
And he won't be allowed to go on missions alone with his wife anymore either. In fact, it's probably not a good idea for married couples to go on dangerous missions together at all.
Yeah, like he says, I've put this new order in so that everyone will know not to send you to. And I'm like, how is that not already Starfleet policy? Like, this is not the first time this has come up.
For this exact reason.
This isn't even really the first time it's come up in Star Trek, because we saw like Picard when he was dating that one chick and was worried about sending her on a mission.
Oh, yeah.
He did, and she died. So Picard did the right thing, but I'm making air quotes in case you cannot tell. But anyway, so like this should be already policy. I don't understand. Also, the ideas about this affecting Worf's potential for promotion come up a couple of times in Apocrypha in books and things. The events of this episode are an important part of the novel Resistance, where Worf is offered by Captain Picard to become the new first officer of the Enterprise E following Riker's promotion and Data's death, but he feels he does not deserve command because of his actions in this episode.
Oh, so he just tells on himself?
I mean, I guess it's in his record or whatever, but I mean, Picard doesn't care.
Right.
So he turns down the promotion because he doesn't feel he's worthy. But then, Picard is reassimilated by the Borg, and Worf is forced to take command of the Enterprise, destroy the Borg, rescue Picard, and then Crusher manages to infect the Borg Queen. Infect is in quotes. The Borg Queen with a, in quotes, virus that will prevent the collective from creating a new one. And when it says new one, I assume that's talking about Queen.
Right.
So there you go. It all works out because Worf took command after all. And then in the Star Trek Picard novel, The Last Best Hope, the events of this episode are briefly raised as token objections before Worf is promoted to captain of the Enterprise E.
Oh.
So.
Oh, wow.
And as we recall, something he did while in charge of the Enterprise E resulted in its premature loss. So maybe they were right that Worf should not have been given command. I'm just saying.
If Star Trek Picard is to be believed.
I want to find out what this meeting's about now. I mean, not this meeting. I want to find out what this novel is about. I went to the novel and was reading the word meeting, and that's why I said it.
Right.
So let's see. Picard is summoned to a meeting with Starfleet CNC. Who informs him that the Romulan star is going to go nova in a few years, blah, blah, blah. Oh, so this is Picard deciding to oversee the evacuation fleet, and the Enterprise. The Enterprise itself is deemed too controversial within the Empire, a symbol of the years of conflict between the two powers. So Picard has to get a different ship, and I guess that's when Worf takes over the Enterprise.
Okay. So that's a pretty, that's pretty recent, because...
Yeah.
When was this supernova introduced? I mean, I'm trying because the reboot movie had this concept of something being wrong with the Romulan star.
Yeah.
But did we learn that it was a nova before Picard or supernova?
Yes, because that's why he comes back in time with the red matter to make other stars do that, because that's what happened to the Romulan one.
Oh, okay.
Apparently this novel's from 2020, so
okay. But yeah, Sisko, after he's done with the official chew out, tells Worf that if he was in his shoes, he would have made the same decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you would have to be a pretty bad husband not to, quite frankly.
Except he kind of didn't, because she had gotten crushed by a girder or whatever, and he made the decision to evacuate the ship or whatever. But
in his case, he also had his son to be worried about, so that does make a difference. And not that Worf doesn't also have a son, but he wasn't there, so.
Right. I think Worf doesn't remember he has a son most of the
time.
Probably
not, yeah.
And also, he's way beyond needing to take care of his son, so.
Yeah, it's true.
So Dax wakes up with Worf by her side, and he tells her what happened and says he has no regrets. She says she doesn't know what to say, and he suggests, "Thank you for saving my life. I would have done the same for you," which she says she'll have to think about.
My career is really important to me.
And so he says, "And you could say I love you," and they say I love yous to each other, and it's very sweet.
Yeah, it's a sweet moment to end this on.
Meanwhile, changeling infiltrators continue to kill people and wreck shit up with impunity. The end.
But not Dax, so...
True.
As long as she survives, it's all been worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it to Worf. He's made that very clear, so...
Yep. A couple other notes about the episode. This was the 500th episode of Star Trek to air.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's got that going for it. Ira Stephen Bear says, this was the episode that was going to show the love Worf has for Dax beyond his Klingon upbringing, beyond his Starfleet training. That was a bold step to take with a character who had previously been defined by these very elements. That's fair, I guess. As with such incidents as Worf's decision to kill Kurn, Kira's refusal to apologize to Solar and Prin, and Odo's decision to allow an entire society to disappear in Children of Time, the writers saw this as another chance to take a character in on an unexpectedly dark journey that would surprise the viewers. According to Ronald D. Moore, I felt very strongly that we shouldn't let Worf off the hook when he's faced with a tough choice. So often in a story like this, the characters will get to have it both ways. His wife lives and he accomplishes the mission. They always cheated somehow. But Worf was not going to let Jadzia die in the jungle, so we decided to let him fail, let the guy die, let Worf take the hit. It represented a more interesting choice, and an unexpected decision on the part of the character. I don't know that I felt it was unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, I felt it was telegraphed pretty heavily, but...
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, what is it going to say about your character if you put him in this situation and then he goes, yes, I will let my spouse die to accomplish the mission? Like, people are not going to like him much after that.
Right. And just to get rid of Dax in that way.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see him, though, pick up Dax on one shoulder and just run over to the Cardassian guy and then just pick him up on the other shoulder.
Yeah.
While the guy's like, what the heck? And then he just runs through the jungle with both of them all the way back to the runabout.
I mean, really, it was like, 2 kilometers more? Yeah. I feel like that it wouldn't have added that much to the clock if he carried her to find the guy. Assuming that you found him right away. I guess they didn't necessarily know.
I think it was 3 kilometers, so it would have been 6 round trip.
But... No, okay, that's a decent amount.
I don't know what a kilometer is. I'm an American. No.
I mean, really, carrying her is probably not... The best bet would have been get to the Cardassian super fast, pick him up, then go back and get Dax. She's probably better off, like, lying still than being carried through the jungle. But if it's the same amount of time.
They should just go back up into orbit and just, like, bomb the heck out of the base.
What they should do, like every single time they've ever taken a runabout out, is have more than 2 people.
Yeah.
That's what they should do.
In fact, didn't we... I guess we were joking when we said they came up with a rule that you have to have more than 2 people on the runabout.
Yep. Unless everybody's busy, I guess.
Right. These were literally just the only 2 people available for this mission.
And you notice that everyone is busy, includes O'Brien and Bashir spending all day learning Tongo to play Tongo against Quark. Like, those guys could have gone on this trip.
Yeah. Maybe they don't have the special security clearance or whatever, but I think we did establish one time that Dax is the only person who has the same security clearance as Worf, right? So
no, it was like because Bashir took over the fleet liaison job, and Worf was gone, and he was just like, I know all this cool info, but I can't tell any
that's
of it.
right. That's right.
I also like how this episode just like throws out real quick. Oh yeah, Keiko's been gone for 6 months. That's why we haven't seen her.
Right. A quick Keiko check. Yeah. Why not?
Okay. I think let's get into reviews. What did you think of Change of Heart?
Okay. Well, it's a nice little Dax and Worf relationship story, and I can totally see what they're going for. Just kind of with, I don't know, we've never really gotten a proper, not dumb Worf and Dax relationship episode other than maybe their wedding episode, so it's important to show that they actually like love each other and are a couple and stuff, besides just having them kind of like bicker at each other every once in a while. So I get all that, but overall I find this episode incredibly boring.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't fall flat on its face. Like, it's not just like a big mess of an episode, but I just feel like it doesn't really do anything to justify being like a episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So, it's definitely not an ensign. It's Lieutenant Junior grade or Lieutenant territory. My main concern is, do I already have an animation for the Lieutenant Junior grade rank? Because I don't want to punish myself further by having to make one. So I'll go ahead and give it a Lieutenant.
I'm going to put out Lieutenant Junior grade just to mess it up. Okay, it's fine.
I know I have one for you. I just don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if I have one for me. So, not a whole lot to say about it. What do you think?
So, first off, as we kind of established, the B story is just like, it's like an anecdote, practically. Like, it's not a B story. And I get what he's saying, that it's like, it would have felt weird in the intense, like, Dax may die section to cut back to comedy Tongo game. Although you could have arranged it so that once things get really serious with Dax almost dying is when you're intercutting with the serious conversation about how amazing a person Dax is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, these are related things that it could have actually, one could have enhanced the other.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, as it stands, the B story is nothing. So that hardly even comes into the equation, honestly. But without that, there's really not. I mean, you said it. There's not much here. It's a pretty simple, like, A to B, B to C story here. Like, we're just moving in a straight line. There's not, and you could say that Worf having to make this decision is this really dramatic, shocking moment, is what they seem to be saying in Memory Alpha anyway. It's like, you would never expect him to make this decision, except that I would never have doubted that he would make the decision. The only thing that you might have thought would happen is what it points out that might have happened in, like, the Next Generation, where they would find some way to cheat it and he'd get both somehow. Like, he would come up with a trick to, instead of running for 20 kilometers, I realized that I can just disable the transport scramblers and transport us all. Like,
right.
That would have been a possibility. That's a Star Trek kind of story to tell. But in lieu of that, in the absence of that, I never expected Worf to let her die. She's a main character on the show. Like, are we really going to kill off a main character halfway through the season? I was going to say, has any Star Trek show ever done that? I mean,
well,
Next Generation,
right.
did. But this show has not done something like that. And it's shocking to me that they think that we would think that would happen. Like, really? You expect us to be like, oh, well, Worf is so honorable that he will accomplish the mission and do his duty before. I don't even feel like that's a description of honorable, is that he puts the abstract concept of duty ahead of like the people that he knows and cares about. Like, that doesn't feel honorable to me.
Well, there could be an element of like the good of the many outweighs the
that's true.
Blah blah blah. But
that doesn't feel Klingon to me.
Yeah.
That's like they are in the moment people. They're not. They're often not thinking of the long-term effects of the things that they do, and so saying that this is like at odds with his Klingon heritage, I don't see it. You could argue from the many and the few viewpoint that it is at odds with his Federation training, and he gets in trouble with his superiors for it. Although it's really not at odds, I don't think, with like the human philosophy at the core of the Federation about like. I mean, they're training you to care about other people. I don't feel like that it's as at odds as they want us to believe that it is. So all that to say that like it wasn't a surprise. I would have been surprised if he did anything different than what he did. So it's just the only thing that I have good to say about it is that it does deal with their relationship in a good way. And it's the same thing you said. We haven't had a really good relationship thing between the two of them. And at the end of the episode, I was actually thinking like, this is one of the most powerful, like emotional Dax episodes that we've ever had. Like, cause I'm feeling things as Dax and him are having this conversation. And then I started thinking about it and I'm like, they just really don't write Dax stories that well.
Yeah.
And almost every Dax story involves very little Jadzia Dax. Like, in this one, she is half dead for a decent chunk of the episode and can't really do anything and has to be saved or left to die. In all the way back to the first episode that was supposedly a Dax episode, Dax.
Right.
We noted that, like, she doesn't do anything in the episode. The same thing happens like when we go to Trill and there's something wrong with the symbiote and we find out about the history of the Dax symbiote. It's a really in-depth episode about the history of Dax, but she doesn't do very much in it. Like, they don't write Jadzia being a proactive character well. She's always like reactive or just not active at all. And it's weird. And every once in a while, I'm not saying like 100% of the time, because we got like Blood Oath, which that's a good Dax episode, and she gets to do stuff, she gets to push, and it's probably one of the best ones for that reason, that she actually gets to be active. And so I was feeling like, oh, this is such a great emotional Dax moment, and I'm like, but once again, she doesn't like do much to like create that. She almost dies and gets saved and is grateful for it. And I'm just like, you guys need to figure out how to write for Dax better. Like, you're not doing a great job with her. And so, for all of those reasons, just the one or two bright spots here cannot pull it up for me. It's definitely going to be below the line. And I think I'm in the same place as you, where it's like, is it a lieutenant? Is it a lieutenant junior grade? This isn't an episode I want to watch again, as a general rule, because it's not that interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go lieutenant junior grade.
Okay. Yeah, I think they do Dax best when they're not trying to do Dax. If that makes sense. I feel like
maybe
they do better with her in like little moments.
As a supporting role.
Yeah. Although, like you said, she's had some good moments. And I think Terry Farrell did a really good job in this episode.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit... And Michael Dorn, too. I think they both did a really good job. And this is one of the few times I actually felt like the two of them actually had really solid chemistry.
Sure.
Because I don't always, buy that. But, I mean, you could say there's a little bit of, showing how Dax like responds to this situation and all that stuff. But yeah, it is more of a Worf thing than a Dax thing. So yeah, what do you think about the title?
I don't. Okay, there's an additional wrinkle with the title for me, because when you
Okay.
say Change of Heart, the first thing I think of is there's a Yu-Gi-Oh card called Change of Heart, and that's the image of that is what comes to mind when you say Change of Heart. That's not the episode's fault, clearly,
Right.
but that is where my mind goes. I guess maybe there's supposed to be some cleverness, because we get that whole thing about the Klingon heart,
Mhm.
and nothing can stand against two Klingon. Maybe that's supposed to play into it. But I don't feel like it's clever. I don't feel like it's related to the episode, really. I mean, I guess Worf for 5 seconds is like, yes, I'll continue the mission, and then changes his mind. And maybe that's the change of heart that we're talking about, but I don't...
Well, I think it's like, Dax kind of changed his heart or something.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
he was, he was Worf. He was that humorless guy from the Next Generation, and now he's a little bit more pleasant,
Yeah. I mean, it does have...
She inspires him to kind of like, be a little bit of a better person or whatever. So
it does have that whole thing about how he's like trying to be more go with the flow and fun, and then he's like, that was a bad idea, and she's like, no.
Right.
So okay, fine. I'll give you that. I also don't think it's particularly memorable. If you say Change of Heart and tell me it's a Star Trek episode, probably my first thought is Tapestry, when Picard has to get a new heart.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's a great title.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of see what they're going for, but I think it might just be a little too abstract. And yeah, it's just hard to match the title with the episode. So you definitely know who mourns for Morn.
Well, it's so few can be.
Right. I think they peaked at that. So
yeah.
Anyway, any final thoughts before we call it?
No.
So yeah, that's our discussion of Change of Heart. Thanks for listening. If you like that one, maybe you'll like our discussion of Let He Who Is Without Sin, natural companion episode,
or the classic Ronald D. Moore mixture of comedy and tragedy that is Life Support.
Mm-hmm. 2 amazing episodes with 2 amazing reviews. So, yeah, check those out. You can find those wherever you're listening to this. And if you're listening in the future, maybe you can also find future stuff. So, look for that. If you want to leave us a comment, you can do that on YouTube. My name is Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
Adios.
We look forward to seeing you next week. But remember, a total monopoly always beats a full consortium.
Good tip to keep in mind.
I think.
Maybe. Yeah, we don't know the rules of Tongo.
Right. We may never. I'm sure the writers have it all figured out, but
probably not.